I follow you on Instagram and you're all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
it's
I
been
mean, what's it like? I mean, you're building Lavender, uh, and it's having tremendous success, taking off from what we see.
Mhm.
How the hell are you doing that and traveling so much and, digital nomading it, if you will?
Yeah. Lavender's going well. Obviously from the outside looking in, it looks like there's always like internal things that founders have to deal with. But
Right, right, right.
on the whole, yeah, Lavender is doing well. People seem to really love the product. And most importantly, people are getting more replies. And like Twilio came and spoke for us a week or two ago in Atlanta and was sharing their results. They had laid off 11% of their staff, which is really sad, but right when they were implementing Lavender. And even with
Mm.
11% smaller workforce, they increased their demos booked by 60% compared to a year before. This is like September 2022. So economy is declining, everyone's doing layoffs, budgets are frozen, and Twilio attributes all of this back to Lavender. So people are getting real results and they're having to do a lot with less. And Lavender kind of fills that gap, makes the sales reps more effective, but also more efficient. So yeah, it's going well. Although we're an early stage startup, so we're always we have our own challenges to work through. But one of the coolest things about this role has been the ability to travel so much. I got used to the remote work expat life, I guess, when I left New York to go to Mexico. And now the majority of Lavender had been built while I was in Mexico. So I got really
Mm.
used to this remote first world. We built our team in this remote first world. So we were kind of by default a distributed
But you're
company.
global though. I mean, it's one thing to be
Yeah.
distributed across the US, but when you're in, other countries and you're just not on the same time zone, so you're having to do work
Yeah.
crazy hours, I would imagine, or ask people to be flexible in theirs.
It's been a learning moment. We it's all been tied back to business. So I
Mhm.
think I've never done this with travel before, by the way, and it just kind of happened. I went to Toronto kind of randomly, and then while I was there, I met a filmmaker. We ended up partnering on our Lavender Joe videos, which is like the story of a kind of a cringy salesperson doing cringy things to real people. And so I started going back and forth to Toronto. That was like when the travel started. And then we did a conference, SaaStr, in San Mateo. So I was in California for that. And then Nick Capozzi from DemoStack was like, you guys should go to Web Summit, which is a conference in Portugal. And so I was like, that sounds fun. Let me go to
Right,
that. It's the
right.
largest conference in the world. So I went
Wow,
to,
didn't know that.
yeah. And
Mm.
one of our friends on LinkedIn, through the power of LinkedIn, got me like a speaker's guest pass. So I had like a free backstage pass. It was really cool. And I was like, I'm already going to Europe for this conference. What else can I do while I'm here? We have an angel investor that's in Barcelona. We had Outreach, who's a partner of ours. They're having a conference, a day-long conference in London. And
Mhm.
then a VC had told me about a conference in Finland called Slush, which is just a tech conference in the Nordics. And
I think
I
that was the
thought,
one
okay,
where the after party was pretty lit. I mean, I know there's several of them, but
yeah.
it's definitely the scene was
it's
lit. It
it's
looked fun.
funny how it happened. Yeah. So I was at Web Summit in Portugal, and it was hard to get like an Uber right after the conference was wrapping up. So I went to this hotel that was across the street. I was hanging out in the hotel lobby. And I just met this guy that was sitting next to me. And he's like, hey, I'm from Finland and I throw the best after party at Slush Festival. You should come.
But
Yeah. So it's like invite
small
only.
world.
Yeah.
That's-
And I was already thinking about going to Slush, but I wasn't like set in stone because Finland seemed like so far away.
mhm.
But then I found out that our angel investor who lives in Barcelona, he was one of the speakers. So he's like, I've got an extra ticket. You could have this free ticket to Slush. So I decided to go. So it ended up being this like these three conferences that kind of set the anchor of the trip. And then there's a company in Poland, Woodpecker. They're an email automation company, and I've used them myself for several years and always been a fan of their company. And they're like, hey, if you're in Europe, come to Poland. We'll host you in Poland and we'll take you to around. I went to Prague with them. So it's like one thing after another. It was a little challenging with the time difference, but it was more challenging with all this other stuff happening. I'm having to
Mhm.
work with our team, while
It's the
also
juggling. Mhm.
we were also in the middle of like closing our Series A. And I was
Congratulations, by the
also
way, on that. That was huge.
appreciate that. We signed the term sheet when I was in Portugal, which was it
You'll
made the
never
rest of
forget that.
it made the rest of that trip a lot better because it was like the first week of the Euro trip and it made the rest of the adventure just I mean, it was also stressful because we signed the term sheet, then you go into a month of diligence and like lawyers and all this stuff. But
Mhm.
for them, it was cool to know that was coming. But for the most part, the time zone was not a major issue, except in Finland. Finland is pretty far away. It's like an 8-hour time difference. So I'm
Mm.
taking team meetings like 11 p.m. That part was not the best. My team was flexible though. We did do some shuffling of when the meetings were, but I think the coolest part about it was with the time difference, I could get up and have like an entire day to myself where no one's DMing me, no one's emailing me, no one's texting me because they're all asleep. And I get
Right.
up and have a whole day in the morning, kind of to myself. I can work, I can explore. And then in the around noon or 1 p.m., the team starts coming online and we start having our meetings. And yeah, it's a longer day, but it was a more fulfilling day because I think
Mm.
in the US, it's like you get up, you're on immediately, you work until essentially day's over, and that's like the entire day. Where when I was in Europe, I had the ability to, it felt more balanced. I was having like my own time in the morning, and then I had the company time in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, you can benefit from the longer day actually.
Yeah.
And I think it's the reverse for some of us where we do the meetings and the calls and the FaceTime, the green time from a seller, during the day. And then you go into that evening stretch where it's the creative time. I mean, we're not exploring our neighborhood, maybe not
Yeah.
so much besides the walking the
Yeah.
dog, but doing some of that stuff. So you've had a lot of changes. We interviewed you. I interviewed you 10 months ago exactly, on the 10 Bound Sales Development podcast.
Hmm.
So you've traveled a ton. You've got
Hmm.
the funding. I'm sure you've grown and you've hired. Uh, what else has changed for Lavender in the last 10 months?
The product's a lot better. I think the biggest change is we have a team now, like you mentioned. We raised the funding, went from essentially being bootstrapped with some angel capital, went to SaaStr. We threw a rave, and that kind of set this ball in motion of a couple of weeks later, we had raised $2.2 million. And then 3 weeks later, we had signed a term sheet for another 11 million. And it kind of came out of nowhere when historically we'd been super undercapitalized. It was me and my co-founders doing almost everything. And then we were able to start even as we were going through diligence with the Series A and like closing out the legal documents, we already had the 2.2 million in the bank. So we could start doing hires. That was
Right.
great. And now we can hire more aggressively, and we are hiring more aggressively, which is an interesting transition as a founder, because it used to be us, we're the creators, we're doing every single thing. And now it's more an evolution into you're a manager and a recruiter of people. And it's all about putting the people in the right places. So that's like
Will put a tweet out. I think it was yesterday. Will already said
Mhm.
this transitioning from a builder to a leader is real, or something to
Yeah,
that effect. So you guys
it's
are
interesting.
making that transition and dealing with that, grappling with that
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, it's a new skill set. And we've had some experiences before. When we first started the company, we had a large group of interns that we had during COVID, around 20. So we had at that point in time, honestly, a larger team than we have now. But it's different when they're interns or part-time versus when they're full-time and they're senior level type people.
Yeah.
It's a really big transition. We made a lot of changes in our product as well. We've incorporated more of generative AI. With like Chat GPT and GPT-3, there's more of that in the product. We've expanded our personalization features. So now it's way faster for someone to send a really personalized email,
Hmm.
do all the research on their prospect without leaving their inbox. And just overall, like really just doubling down on our goal of helping sales teams write better emails faster using AI. And I think one of the core points of view that we have is that a lot of companies are trying to replace the sales rep and they're going like full automation. And as a prospect, I hate when I receive just purely automated templated emails. If you're not going to
Sure.
give me 3 minutes of research on who I am, and
Well,
I'm just
especially
like,
you are going to be sensitive to that, I'd imagine.
it's funny how many people will like email me and they're like, hey, I love Lavender, like congrats, like blah, blah, blah. And they have this whole email. It follows none of the things that we talk about. And then it's like, PS, sorry, I didn't use Lavender on this email. And I'm like, if you're going to email the founder of Lavender, you should probably,
Yeah, yeah.
use the tool, or at least
And a little
pretend.
jab at the end is actually working against you, not for you. It is
Yeah.
free. There
Mhm.
you can sign in right now and tap in and use some of it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So I think it's always funny, but that's
yeah.
been the biggest change. Like we've just really been able to build out the team, and we're still in the early stages of that. But we built out the team. we were 6 people in December. Now we're at 16. It's still a small
Wow.
team, but
Yeah.
it's
But
3x
percentage wise,
almost.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we're hiring right now. So
What are you hiring for?
I think
What
primarily
positions?
for product and engineering.
Mhm,
We're starting to put some feelers out for more go-to-market leadership in the company.
mhm.
Always looking for great salespeople. We have a lot of them come to us because of who we are and our brand.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think we have a high bar set for the next round of salespeople we hire, just because there is a lot of inbound leads for that. But the primary focus right now is really staffing up on engineering and product. I think it's been one of an Achilles heel of ours, but also it's been a really strong point of ours. Like we've built this product that's used by companies like Twilio, or Demandbase or Sendoso. These companies like lots of people really know, but our product was built by 2 engineers. It was our CTO and our first ever full stack engineer we hired back in 2020. We had some interns and other people along the way, but primarily it was just these 2 people that built this product that's used by thousands of people around the world. But because of that, because our team was so, like, kudos to them for building a product people
Right.
really like with with a very small team. But it also means that we're now starting to build out features and things that we find to be like really innovative in the space that we had to put on our roadmap back in 2021. So we're like 2 years behind on on our roadmap. So now, like, really staffing up the engineering team to go through that backlog of stuff that I think is be a really great addition to the product. That's like number one priority, just getting the team that the engineers really need to execute.
So in terms of like release schedules, you're doing small, minor things, I would imagine, along the way as you can, and then you probably have some big changes brewing
Yeah.
that you'll release and make big announcements about. Not that you could tell us what it is, but do you have about a timeline of when that next big change is scheduled to be announced?
I think there'll be some big stuff coming out in the next 30 days or so. But I think you're totally right on how we approach how we're doing the release schedule. So
Mm.
every sprint that we're doing, our team's working on like some net new things and also working on polishing up some things that are broken or could be optimized. One of the like downsides of the team being so small for so long is we know that there are a lot of inefficiencies and things in the product that a bug or something that's like too complex for a user to work through, or our onboarding is not perfect. Like, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and we're aware of that. We've got a massive backlog of things to work on, but fortunately, none of those things have prohibited our users from getting a lot of value from the product. And one of our users were like, all the quirks in the product, it makes it more endearing because everyone's so
Mm.
close to the founders. But as the company gets bigger, and now we're not just the founding team anymore, the users start to get more removed from the founders. And I think and as the companies that we sell to become larger, there's like less margin for error. So a lot of what we're doing right now is clean up, fixing some of the things that are a byproduct of being bootstrapped for so long, while also knowing that we need to kind of push the envelope on what's coming next in sales email.
Well, that's exciting, man. I mean, you guys have come on the scene and really made a splash. A ton of people, if not everyone, is using Lavender that is in my circle. So I know it's well adopted that way. Talk to me about your go-to-market strategy a little bit. This is the Sales Consultant Podcast, and one of the
Yeah.
things that we're trying to do is understand what's working in terms of what's driving revenue. So what's that big bet, that big thing when you think about what's happening right now to help drive revenue for Lavender outside of using your own product? What's that go-to-market strategy, that play, or that tactic that's having a big significance in driving revenue for a successful company like yours?
Yeah, I think we have a long way to go before I'd say we're successful, but we're definitely more successful than we were when we got started. It's been a long journey and still a long journey to go. But there are some things that we've done that I think worked really well. And we've really approached our go-to-market kind of as like a hybrid. So I came from a sales background, but
Yeah.
when we started the company, we were just a couple of people, and we were trying to wear so many hats. We knew that we couldn't go purely full sales outbound as our go-to-market. We didn't have enough time in the day for just the 2 of us.
Right.
So we really leaned heavy on content and community. That was not really intentional. The content part was, we know if we posted on LinkedIn, like, people would find us somehow, but I don't think we expected how passionate and how large the community was going to be. And it kind of seems like it happened out of nowhere, but we've been posting on LinkedIn since COVID, since lockdown. So it's been, over 2 years.
Right.
But that was really the key. Was we went into this with kind of a product-led motion when just traditionally most sales tech companies were top-down enterprise sales, and we launched a product that an individual SDR or AE could install and start using without ever talking to their manager or their team or IT or even putting in a credit card, because there's a free trial and a free version.
Right.
So we have a product that anyone can adopt on their own. And then if they get success from it and they like it, they start telling their team. And then naturally the manager will reach out and do a demo, and then sales can close the team account. But for a long time, a lot of our revenue was coming just from individual SDRs that were paying us at the time 20 and now $30 a month. So very affordable for them, especially if they're doubling their reply rate, it makes up for it in commission.
Right.
And then there's obviously like extra intelligence features and coaching features and team features that is interesting to the enterprise. But we've approached it as like this hybrid motion, kind of like a Slack, where we can adopt the team without ever talking to a manager. The individual reps can come in and use the product and get value. But once you make it a multiplayer experience and the whole team is learning from each other's data and that's getting reinforced in their recommendations, it becomes really attractive to a team leader as well. And so we're a hybrid. We have the product-led, marketing-led side of the business, which really gets awareness at top of funnel. And then we have our AEs that demo, do pilots if needed, and close the business.
So in terms of the community side, because that's obviously paying off really well. You have a lot of people sharing their use and talking about Lavender and how it's helping them. And so building on that, do you have someone dedicated to like community enablement? Is there a role dedicated to that within the organization?
There is now. Previously there wasn't. It was just really me and Will Allred. We've hired Jen Allen, who used to be at Challenger, and now she's really leading up our community, but not so much our LinkedIn community. She's building bridges with other communities, with partnerships, sponsorships,
like modern
and
selling and the pavilions.
Exactly. Women in sales, like a lot of those types of organizations. So she's working with that. But I think for people listening that are trying to do community-led growth, what really worked for us was our people tried. It's really interesting to see recently, like people are going on LinkedIn and like dissecting what they think Lavender's strategy is, or Lavender used this text, or they did this or that. And it's not that serious. I mean, it was pretty simple.
I love that. It's like it just kind of happened organically. You do put some things in place, and
our strategy was we give first. That's like one of our core values. We give first without expectation. Our product's free, our content's free. We don't gate anything. And we just know that if we did that long enough, people will eventually use our like our content. Probably they'll use our tool. Of course, not everyone does. Like we give our product away to job seekers. The majority of them get a job, and they're probably not salespeople. Like they're getting jobs for all sorts of things. And after they find the job, they don't use the product, but some of them do. Like some of them stay, and some of them take it into their team. So this idea of giving first was like the key pillar. We got our first users by cold outbounding to people that were laid off from Airbnb during COVID. And that was before Lavender was for salespeople. It was really just for anyone. And we've been giving it away since the very beginning. And then when we started building content, we had the same strategy. Let's give away informational content every day. And that's just in a world where a lot of people, they put out content on LinkedIn, and then it's like, hey, you can also buy my course or buy my ebook or things like that. Attend my webinar. Yeah. And we just were like, let's just put it out there. And then the other side of it was, so like give first, be informative, be helpful, and then try to be different and creative when possible. So like do things that would not be expected of a B2B SaaS company. Our highest converting landing page ever, I got so many people that would write in like, your landing page sucks. This is the worst site I've ever seen, et cetera. It's just like, it's so unprofessional. If you thought about changing this, it was a claymation wizard and had no above the fold CTA, but we converted like a quarter of our web traffic. And my suspicion is that it's just, you landed on it and you're like, what am I looking at? And it just it tempts you to scroll. Like, what am I seeing? I've never seen this on a B2B SaaS company's website. And it's a massive pattern interruption. Just like we launched 3 EDM songs, we made, we've launched some random videos through a rave at SaaStr. Our Lavender Joe videos have come out and have been really comedic. So we're always trying to find things like that that are going to just stand out in the community and kind of give people a breath of fresh air when they're under pressure to hit their quota. Their boss has different demands for them. Like they're in the stress of a sales job, but Lavender can help them, but also entertain them along the way.
Right. And you guys are doing phenomenal work with that. I have this image in my mind that the two of you or your team are somewhere with a big ass whiteboard and just like brainstorming this massively innovative creative stuff that you guys are putting out, because it is a total pattern interrupt. But how do you keep up with that? I mean, that's like, you guys are setting the bar really high for yourself. A year from now, you still have to keep people on the edge of their seats. How are you going to do that? How do you do that?
It's one of the things that we're learning. So it used to be like I would just scroll the internet trying to find interesting ideas. That's how the claymation kind of came about. Or even the EDM song. One of our users, Sims Tillerson, he now has a lavender wizard tattoo, but one day someone had posted a comment on LinkedIn and just said, I'm asking my network, what is your favorite cold email tool? And Sims commented, it's Lavender, duh. And I saw that and I was like, that's a meme. So, and somehow I connected that to, let's go make an EDM song and drop it on April Fools. So like, I think it's just seeing things,
going with it and being open. And I love that.
Yeah. And not everything works. So
Right,
we've done some stuff that fell flat. We've done some stuff that went really viral. We've done some stuff that was somewhere in between. But I think one of the keys is that we're not afraid to try things. And a lot of times the B2B companies get really caught up in the fact that they're B2B companies and they have to appeal to the enterprise and things like that. And I think what we really realized early on is, even though we're a B2B product, our users are just consumers. Like when they're not at work, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they like memes, they send funny jokes in their group chat. Like they're regular people just like us, especially the average SDR who's maybe a couple of years removed from college. And that's who we're speaking to. So we thought about what are the things that they like to do in their free time, and let's just bring that to them in an interesting way to their work day. I think the cool thing is that we do have to keep setting the bar higher. We have other companies that are starting to, they've even told us we're going to copy you, like, and then now we're seeing it happen a lot. But
you got to reinvent yourself though at some point, right? To stay ahead of that. It's the artist approach. Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing, is that we already are planning out like some of the campaigns we're going to be doing later this year, even next year. We kind of see how the evolution of different storylines that we have right now, like Lavender Joe, for example, how's that going to evolve? What other characters are coming into his universe? Because we know like Lavender Joe at some point is going to become redundant. It's gonna be, you've seen it so many times.
Well,
like,
I mean, Joe's been around for Geico for a while, you know, or Flo, I should say.
Flo,
right?
yeah. It's funny. Everyone relates it back to even my grandparents and my mom. Like it's like Flo from Progressive.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long that goes, but I think there'll always be something new. We've got a really creative team. We hired Will Aiken, who was at SalesFeed, and Todd Klauser, who's at Refine Labs. And we've got a really creative team that's putting together content. Will Aiken is someone who I'm always impressed with, how he just pulls creative ideas out of nowhere. Like we did a meme today of Lavender Joe, like paired with the show You from Netflix. Like there's a lot of stuff that he just comes up with out of nowhere. And I think it's really funny. So
well, when you give someone that, you know, autonomy, I think is part of that too. You hired someone who's really good at what they do. You have a group around you where you guys are, you know, having fun in the process, and it's fueling this creative energy. So it looks like a great place to work. You're hiring, and you know, so anybody that hasn't already, you know, heard that part, definitely lots of positions available at Lavender. Great place to be at. Will, I love following your stuff on Instagram, and Will Allred as well. He puts out fire. You're talking about giving away the content, the 70-page odd deck that he puts out with like, this is the recipe. There's nothing, no gated. These are this is the slides. And if people just followed that, even if they didn't use Lavender and they just followed that game plan, you'd have above the 5% average that you see. I want to put the gloves on though for one moment, not me with you, but you with the rest of the market, because Lavender's not the only organizational B2B, you know, company that's trying to help companies write emails better, right? So AI, you mentioned Chat GPT, you're doing some work with that. Other companies are doing some of that as well. There's Scribe has come on with Lead IQ. So how it goes back to the, innovating, staying in front of the curve a little bit. How are you differentiating yourself now that they're starting to see more and more of these personalization AI tools out there? I mean, do you combine the two? You sound like you've already combined Chat GPT. So in my mind, I'm thinking I write a personalized email for free, through, I pull some stuff out of Chat GPT, layer on Lavender, boom, I got an email. But talk to me about the competition or the AI aspect of it, and if that's something that you guys are worried about.
Yeah, the generative AI part, as hot of a topic it is right now, that's the easiest part to replicate. A lot of companies are out there and they're just a front end that they've put on top of GPT-3 by OpenAI. So Chat GPT is powered by GPT 3.5, and the latest they launched an API for Chat GPT like last week, but until then the most recent version that was publicly available was GPT-3 by OpenAI, and they'll have GPT-4 later this year. We've had GPT-3 in our product since 2021, so for 2 years it's already been part of our product. And now a lot of companies will pop up, especially because it's so hot, and these companies a lot of them are trying to IPO, and it's a down market, and it's the hot new thing. So let's like haphazardly throw Chat GPT into our product. I'm seeing some of that happen with companies. I'm not calling anyone out, because I think it's kind of table stakes now. You have to incorporate this element of AI, but we've always thought of it as just one part of our product. Like Lavender does so many things. It helps you write a better email. If you need help starting that email, you can use our Start My Email feature, which is the generative AI powered by OpenAI, ChatGPT, et cetera. If you want to personalize the email, we're pulling in data from several providers and just bring it into your workflow. But the interesting thing is that we have this email intelligence platform that it's kind of like, not my words, our users describe it as kind of like a Gong-esque platform for email intelligence. And obviously Gong's way bigger than us, way further along, way more sophisticated. But in the spirit of Gong, this coaching email intelligence product that has nothing to do with generative AI, but that's where the team's really getting a lot of the value. Like they're able to see, where are my reps underperforming, what's working in my templates, what's working in our personalized emails, what was working last month versus this month, or last season versus this season. You can do a lot of analytics and filtering to see which reps need more help, which ones are doing really well.
It's like a dashboard or like a series of reports that you run. Like, how do you see that data?
Yeah. It's a dashboard that's continuously learning about every rep on your team and then your team overall. It also benchmarks you based on your historic data from before you had Lavender. So it will tie into your Gmail, Outlook, Outreach, Salesloft, and it sees like what's worked in the past, what has not worked. And let's use that to train the algorithm that Lavender uses to score your email. The generative AI parts can take that data into account. So we're combining third-party data with your first-party data with our intelligence as well to give a really custom solution that's tailored to your organization. So companies that are just taking the Chat GPT API and allowing you to interface with it and say, write me an email, like 9 out of 10 times that email is going to be like, hope this finds you well, and it's going to have 300 words. So the AI is not really quite there yet to be completely unassisted. And it's also not what we think is best for the world. Like if you are using Chat GPT to generate an email, and then you have a service that puts those emails into a sequence and they automatically send it, and the human's really not involved in that process, to me, that is classic definition of spam. And Google has already started to lower the rankings of blogs that were written by GPT-3. OpenAI has released an API to detect AI written text.
So this AI detection thing is out there. I mean, I don't know. That sounds like a really difficult syntax to be able to, codify, because, if I could pull something out of Chat GPT, I could just wordsmith it a bit and I'm done. So then that means higher ed is already tapping into that, because I'm sure every student is already trying to do that in their essays.
Yeah, I've seen some products launched from Product Hunt that are purely there to detect students that have written research papers or done their homework using
Better tell my daughter. I just turned her on to Chat GPT last week, and she was like, "Oh my God, I can do my homework with this." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think they can tell." So I could.
They can
Pull that
tell, but
back.
honestly, I love it, and I use it. I use it kind of like I use Google. Like I think that's where ChatGPT becomes really
Right.
interesting,
Right.
and also how we're thinking about it in our product. Like it's not there to replace you; it's there to
Mhm.
work alongside you, make you more efficient. I can pull in data or have it research my prospect's company, like what's happened recently for them, and or have it quickly summarize a financial report or something like that, and without leaving my workflow. Like that's really powerful. It saves you a lot of time. Do I think I should use ChatGPT to write my email for me and not have me edit it at all? I personally no.
Hell no.
And
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is if that becomes widespread, then companies like Google will have an interest in filtering it out as spam or putting in the other tab or the promotions tab, because it's AI automated writing that's then put into an automated sequencer and sent out automatically. Like nothing about that is really not spam. And that's where a lot of our competitors are. I think that's where they're pointing their product roadmap currently, where I think GPT, Chat GPT, there's like tons of models. Google has Bard, there's Cohere, there's Anthropic, there's lots of models coming out, large language models. But whichever one that you put into your product, they I think everyone's going to have one, and some people will try to replace the worker, and other ones like us are going to try to just empower the worker to be more efficient without having it replace them.
Yeah. It's definitely something that everyone that is in the space is trying to keep their, attuned to. It's just there's so much information coming out about this so quickly. It's definitely an influx. Last couple of questions, and I'll let you go. Going back in time when you and Will and the team started Lavender and started working on the product, I know there was what was it, the personality science-based marketing platform that you started on. COVID happened, and then you pivoted because you knew people were going to be sending more one-to-one emails. I remember you saying that in our last interview. Obviously, I went back and listened to it. So, like, how did you know? Like, you made a big bet making that pivot, and it
Yeah.
seems to be paying off. I mean, I know you're going to, lower the my hype of it, but it seems like it's paying off huge, and you guys are having tremendous
Yeah.
success. So, like, was it mad? Was the wizard in your ear, or did he poof
Yeah.
give you some pixie dust? How did this happen? I mean, how did you know to make that pivot, or was it just serendipitous and things worked out kind of like what you've been explaining?
There's a few things. And of course, we want to be humble here. There's a lot of things we got to do right before we're a tremendous success. But thank you. I appreciate
Of
that. And
course.
I'm just glad the community is really adopted and likes the product that we're building. It was a combination of things. So we were building a platform called Sorter. We had spent almost 2 years building this, sorter.com, and it was a personality marketing platform. It would do data segmentation of your audience. It would categorize them by how they thought through a buying decision. So for example, if someone's really data driven, then you'd want to send them an ad or an email that focused more on the details of your product. Like maybe it's a little bit longer of an email, longer of an ad. Someone who's more action oriented, just remove all friction to buying because they typically want to get started. And there's like a deeper explanation of the science behind it, but that's the gist. Like segment your audience by their personality type, and then help you optimize the email or the ad that you're going to send them. So part of that product would analyze the marketing copy of our user and say, is it the right copy for the audience that you're trying to target? So like the analytical thinkers or something like that. We had a few customers, early pilots, early case studies, and honestly, a pretty healthy pipeline of well-known brands that wanted to use this, or at least try it out for pilots. And this was more of a top-down sale. There was not a product-led motion. And COVID happened, and our biggest customer was a co-working space, and they can't even operate during lockdown. So we lost them. A lot of our pipeline were these large automotive companies. People were not buying cars during COVID. They weren't going anywhere. And there's so much uncertainty. And we were pretty bootstrapped at this point, and just a little bit of angel funding. We had maybe 45 days of runway left, right around the time that we lost our pipeline and we lost our current handful of customers. So we were pretty sure we were going out of business. People freeze their marketing budgets typically when things get really uncertain. And we were seeing that happen. And honestly, we just saw an article that LinkedIn was making some adjustments to LinkedIn Sales Navigator for Gmail. We saw an article in TechCrunch, and we're like, we already have data on people that we're buying to make the personality prediction. What if we just spent the weekend and spun up a little Chrome extension to put in Gmail that would show you data on the people that you're emailing? And by the way, we also have this tech that we're using to analyze the writing for marketing copies and figure out the sentiment and the emotion and things like that. Let's just combine it and see kind of what happens. We thought maybe we could make $15,000 to extend our runway an extra month just to kind of get through lockdown, back when lockdown was supposed to be a really short thing. And we just thought it would be a fun side project that would keep us alive a little bit longer. We already own the domain Lavender.ai. So we're like, let's just call it Project Lavender. We already have it and kind of just put it out there. And then we sent it to a few people. Like there was no ICP. It was not going to be a sales tech product.
I mean, you had the weekend.
Yeah, we thought people could have help it to find jobs or use it to find jobs. But then in our first handful of users, like people really loved it. They thought it was super simple to use. Our 8th beta user was an angel investor, and we didn't even pitch him. We just said like, hey, try it out. You talk to a lot of companies. And he wrote back, I'm using it on 1/3 of my inbox. It's really sticky. I'll help you. I'll fund you for 3 months if you want to pivot. And we had this like hunch that because everyone's in lockdown, I had come from sales. So I was thinking like, because everyone's in lockdown, at the time, the average sales team, 70% of their outbound was cold calling, and maybe 30% on a high end was email, likely largely automated. And with COVID, the amount of outbound emails like instantly went up by 16%. Reply rates dropped immediately 8%. That's some data from Clary, who's a customer of ours. And what we were thinking was, at that point in time, a lot of the data providers had office numbers because people were in the office. And now everyone's calling cell phones. But back then it was office numbers. If no one's in the office, who's going to answer the phone? And even us, we were trying to figure out our ICP. We were cold calling customer success orgs, marketing orgs, HR orgs, sales orgs. No one answered the phone because no one was in the office. But we thought, if you can't reach your prospects by the phone, they're going to email them. And let's just build a product around that use case. And really early on, a lot of somehow the sales reps started finding it on LinkedIn. And one of the really interesting things was those people promoted it. They wanted to post about finding Lavender.
From day one. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. One of the first people was, you might know him, Nick Bennett. He posted about Lavender, and we're like, wow, this random person found our product and then made a post on LinkedIn about it. That's really interesting. I wonder if more people would do that. And now it's been a big part of our growth. Our users go post for us. They're like our best sales reps.
Right. I remember that's what I asked you in our first interview is, because I was always trying to understand what's driving success for SDR teams, and you didn't have an SDR team. You're like, our users are our SDRs. And I thought that was a brilliant line.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, that was really the key. I wouldn't say it was like we were geniuses or anything. It was just like we were right on the money with the timing of the market and what was happening. And we made a big bet. We didn't have time for customer discovery. We had a month and a half of runway left. It was a Hail Mary. And thankfully it worked, but it was one of those things.
It was an educated guess. It wasn't some shot in the dark necessarily. This is where the market's going. 2 + 2 is 4. We have the skill, the tech, opportunity has presented itself. And I love that how this was born out of failure, and I think that's a tremendous learning lesson for anybody who's trying to start their own thing or, do something new for the first time, whatever that might be, is sometimes you got to fall on your face, maybe more than once in some cases, to get to have that success, which has worked out for you guys. Well, is working out so far. I know you got a long ways to go. You say.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that I really love about the startup world. And like, I came from like sales before that. And in sales, like failure is not celebrated. Like you got to hit your quota, you got to hit your numbers, you got to do your activity. But for entrepreneurship in the community, if you think of failure as a way to learn and evolve, it's like really celebrated. So I was thinking of this earlier. One of our team members asked, like, how'd you learn so much about startups and things like this? And I was like, I've been doing startup type things since I was in college. This is now 13 years of aggregated learnings. And I've tried multiple ideas, multiple startups, both with my co-founders and before that. And some were moderately successful. Like I had a Snapchat filter e-commerce store that did well, kept me alive for a while. But there's like things I've learned along the way. I had to learn how to do user interface design. I had to learn how to do like community building. I already had the sales side from being a sales rep, but there were things I had to learn at each failure. And when Lavender came along, it's just like, kind of like you said, it was an educated pivot. We had the skills, we had the tech, we had all these things we had learned from struggling for years that we were able to just bring together and with really fortunate market timing that we happen to identify, and also the same time that everyone moved from LinkedIn being a place to host your resume to a real social network, because people are looking for that connection they're missing during lockdown. We started posting on LinkedIn like July 2020. So we timed the market, we timed LinkedIn. We had to post on LinkedIn because we had no other way to acquire customers. We had no money. And all these things just kind of came together at the right
Scrappy, you
time.
just made it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Thank you for this, William. It's been great. Where should people go? Where if they want to find you and connect you and follow with you?
Lavender.ai, it's right here.
Sorry.
And yeah, and if you go on LinkedIn, that's where we're mostly at. It's Will Ballance with 2 L's, on TikTok at Will Startup. And you just search Will and Lavender and you'll find me or one of the other Wills. We're there.